Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Lee. Welcome back to another edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. We got a great guest today, Bill Sullivan, who is the GM of USA Ball Hockey. He's also a scout for the London Knights in the OHL. And we had a great kind of two-part conversation here. First half is about ball hockey and how you can get involved in ball hockey, how it's a great, great sport if you love the game. And then we dive right into what are scouts looking for at the highest levels? And that really turned into a great conversation. I took a ton of notes. It was really insightful, kind of from all perspectives, right? Like what you should be looking at when you're in the kind of first half versus the second half. But Bill is a great guest. Took a lot out of this episode. And yeah, if you do too, if you love this show, please feel free to share it. Share it in your team snap, share it with other parents, share it with your friends and families. Help us grow. We are consistently in the top 50 hockey podcasts right now in America, which blows my mind that this audience has grown to that. So we really appreciate you for doing that. Also, I want to remind everybody the show is brought to you by Hockey Wraparound. Check them out, hockeywraparound.com. They've got products that you can use on your ice hockey stick to use it outside. So parents, if you're tired of your kids destroying their $100, $200, $300, $350 ice hockey sticks, this is a great product for you. They also have other things like the Dry Stick mobile equipment dryer, which you should check out for this season coming up. It's going to save you a lot of space and a lot of room, amongst other things. So check that out, hockeywraparound.com, hockeywraparound.com, hockeywraparound.com. And without further ado, enjoy this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Have a good one. Hello, hockey friends and families around the world, and welcome to another edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. I'm Lee Elias, and I'm joined by my good friend Mike Benelli. Our co-host Christy Casciano Burns is on assignment today, and we are joined today by our special guest, Bill Sullivan. Bill is another hockey lifer whose resume includes titles such as coach, medalist, scout for the London Knights, just to name drop, director of player personnel, director of hockey, director of facility ops, GM, business owner, amongst other, I'm sure. Bill recently served as the GM of Team USA Ball Hockey and recently started Sullivan Hockey, a one-on-one player development video service that seeks to enhance a player's awareness, creativity, production, and understanding of situational hockey, something that I know Mike and I would love most players to have. Bill, it's awesome to have you here. Welcome to Our Kids Play Hockey.
Thank you guys for having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, we are too, man. I want to start off by focusing on you. One of the parts about you that stood out to me during my research of you was how relentless you've been in pursuing a career in hockey. So can you talk us about where that spark comes from and why you chose that path?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Grew up with ball hockey kind of just embedded. Like my parents owned a health facility, and in the mid 80s, it was a tennis courts, and they changed it to ball hockey when Lemieux came to Pittsburgh and the boom kind of happened. And they changed it to a ball hockey rink. A few years later, they added the second rink. So I'm born into just going to this facility every day that just happened to have two ball hockey rinks. So I kind of grew up, not kind of grew up, I grew up there. So playing hockey and just is what you did in the summer. And as you start to grow up and develop, you play higher levels of not just ball hockey, but ice hockey. You figure out, okay, am I good enough to do this? To get some of my schooling paid for and play in the NCAA. And if you're lucky enough, and it turns out I was, and to do that. And then once you're finished with school, I didn't have any crazy goals of professional hockey. I knew my limitations there, but once you're finished with school, you have to kind of decide where are we going with life here. And just like most people who work in hockey, at some point, I tried another avenue. I moved to New York City. I worked in an art gallery in Soho, and I lived in Queens for a while, and I loved it. But at the end of the day, there was something that was missing, and it was pretty clearly hockey. So I made my way back to Pittsburgh, and I kind of inched my way into different avenues, starting with ball hockey and coaching and stuff. I coached women's NCAA a bit, doing individual lessons on both sides of it. And then as I kind of really understood that this is what I wanted to do, and I started talking to people. That's a big thing, guys. Like, if you want to do this, talk to people who have done it, and talk to them a lot and bend their ear. And when you're done bending their ear, find somebody else and bend their ear a bunch. Right. So I talked to some family friends that I was like, listen, like I want to evaluate. I think scouting is what I could do best. I've always been much better at watching hockey than playing hockey. And when I decided that that's what I wanted to do, I talked to people, and they were basically like, Billy, listen, like, you think you know what this is, but if you make it to the highest level of evaluating hockey, you're going to be gone 200 days a year, and you're going to be living in the rink, and it's not very glamorous, and scouts aren't getting paid the same thing that the players are. However, that's what I want to do, because one day I want to be able to say, when somebody asks me what I do for a living, I can say I watch hockey, you
Right.
know? So that's kind of the long version, guys, is I just kind of slowly got into it. And then there was a barrier where once I got over it, it's like, okay, I'm going to do anything to make my living in hockey and succeed at this. And that's kind of what I'm in the pursuit of now.
Have you seen the film Hustle on Netflix yet?
I have.
I was
I
gonna say
have.
that must have spoken to you.
It was awesome. It was
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
It
That's
really
a
was good.
quick recommendation for the audience living out there. So listen, first off, love the answer. I understand completely. There's been points in my life where professionally I've tried to do other things and the game just continues to call to me. I always say that to my friends, the game's calling to me, and kind of reiterates that statement of hockey's not something you do, it's something you are. Right. And we're all very privileged to be here to be able to work in the game. I want to go back to the beginning of the story. First of all, I love how you said, yeah, I spent my summers playing hockey, right? Most people listening to this show are thinking, well, that's wintertime stuff. But the truth is, most people start this game on a floor, on a street, on a deck, playing some form of ball hockey. A lot of the older audience remember Milek, who's still around. Mike Benelli does a lot of work in floorball. That's a sport that is completely encouraged, by the way, for all players.
Absolutely.
But here's something a lot of people may not realize. We all know Team USA ice hockey, which we kind of say we graduate to, which I don't think is fair. They have a Team USA. Our
Yep.
roller hockey program has a USA team. Guess what? Our deck hockey program has a Team USA ball hockey team, and they've been around for a while. Isn't that right? But tell me a little bit about USA ball hockey. Obviously, you're the GM of the team that just kind of played. Tell me about the sport, kind of how big it is, how passionate those players are, because I'm sure it's the same of every other level, what it's like to represent the country. And then it's a lot of questions here, but I also want to explain to people how important this version of the game is, how people can get involved in it, how it's an alternative to ice hockey year round and spending $16 billion per season. Can you walk us through that kind of landscape a little bit?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head at the end there. If you are big in the ice hockey, which a lot of us are, however, a lot of people in the ball hockey are niche into ball hockey alone, and that's great. But if you're in the ice hockey world, get off the rink for a little bit in the off season. Get off the rink, find another way to compete, get that fix. And I'm very big into ball hockey being that option for people. Yeah, play lacrosse, play baseball, play everything when you're growing up. Ball hockey is another good option. Look up, it's we live in a world where you can Google anything and see where you are. And I guarantee there's going to be something within the ballpark of you that you can go and play some ball hockey in the off season. And people always say that, okay, it works on your hands and things like that. And yeah, it does. It absolutely helps your hands. But once you start to get older and at a higher level, where ball hockey starts to really come in and help your ice hockey is the rinks. When we get to USA ball hockey, they're bigger, but locally they're smaller. You have to make your decisions very quick because there's somebody in your face all the time. Your decision making is on point, and stamina, man, does it come into play because you're running the whole time. I still is the reason that I'm not. I'm sometimes on the fence about ball hockey. It's my passion. I love it, but like, God, I wish I didn't have to run the whole time.
Right.
You know what I
Skating is
mean?
just
But
so much easier.
I know I'm so good at
Yeah.
drifting,
Yeah.
but in ball,
Right.
they keep making me run. But
Right.
get into it because I promise you, um, in my experience, nobody who plays ball hockey has ever been like, man, that was such a waste of time for ice hockey. It only helps you. It only
Right.
helps you, even if it's just like a once a week thing. There's so many different, attributes that go to your ice hockey game from it. Now, once you get to the international level and things we're talking about a little bit, the international governing body for ball hockey is called the ISBHF, the International Street and Ball Hockey Federation. They came around in the late 90s, around 97, and started developing this World Ball Hockey Championship. Ball hockey itself, organizationally, has been around since the 70s
Right.
and came around in Leominster, Massachusetts. You mentioned Milek, with the Hausers and the Leclercs and Lapierre's up there, and everybody doing a great job up there. And now that we're getting into ball hockey, kind of has it's staged every 2 years with the men's and women's world championships and the juniors and the U18s and U16s. The USA Ball Hockey has done a fantastic job of getting the local areas ready to try to go into those major events. And I know on a larger scale, the governing bodies are trying to, inch towards the Olympics one day.
Yeah.
And the tournaments that go on throughout the major areas in the states, your Pittsburghs, your Buffaloes, your Massachusetts, your South Jersey and Philly areas, it is a whole world that you don't know exists. But the level of competition ranges from the elite of the elite of the elite, where you have NHL draft picks and high-end world-class ball hockey players, down to everybody who just wants to play a little bit. So
Right.
listen, I could rant all day on ball hockey, but go do it. Go do it. It's only going to help you.
Well, I think one of the aspects too that obviously the NHL has seen, and you're seeing that down in your area too, is with the Pittsburgh Penguin Foundation and the stuff that Pittsburgh does, is building all those deck hockey rinks and ball hockey facilities, all over the place, knowing that they want to grow the game. They just got to get kids to to an entry level that they can afford and still create that fun, energized atmosphere. So I mean, you're definitely in the right place for the growth of ball hockey for sure into ice hockey.
No, Pittsburgh. Listen, the South Jersey can make an argument for it. Massachusetts could make an argument for it, but I'm a little biased because I'm in Pittsburgh. But I think it's kind of the mecca in our country for ball hockey. I know that for better or worse, sometimes there's a little bit of issues of Pittsburgh's not a big city and maybe too many rinks. I'm gonna be honest with you, where it kind of you start to have a we grew the game initiative, but maybe the competition is kind of subsiding a little bit because of they can just, instead of going 10 minutes this way, they can stay right here and play, as opposed to, leveling up the competition. However, in every sport, everywhere, at every level, you're going to have, pros and cons with everything trying to grow it. So that is what it is. The Pens have done a fantastic job of building the rinks and getting more kids involved in the game. And now us involved in USA Ball Hockey need to take it to the next level. And I know people like Corey Hirsch and Tom Ruiz, who are involved in USA Ball Hockey, and Chris Banks, have done a fantastic job of getting it to areas that aren't the mecca, and in out in Iowa and California and Oregon, and playing in different parts of Texas, and growing the game, not just to where the primary players are coming from, but getting it from everywhere. And they're doing a fantastic job with it.
Right. I'll say too that first off, I love that you're from Pittsburgh. I'm in Pennsylvania. I'm in Philadelphia. I always say Pittsburgh and Philadelphia are in the same state, but we couldn't be more apart in every sense of the word. But look, it's what's cool about Pittsburgh. I'm going to compliment Pittsburgh is 5 cups, 2 of the greatest players in the history of hockey. It shows you how much it can grow the game, really, at every single version of the game, every level. One of the things about ball hockey too, just to admit this to our audience, just to give you an idea. I've been involved in ice hockey my whole life, and really recently, someone told me. Keep in mind, I've only lived back in this area for a few years, but someone said, "Yeah, there's a deck hockey rink here, like 10 minutes from my house." I'm like, "What? I didn't even know that there was a deck hockey rink near my house," which kind of annoyed me, and I was ashamed of myself for not knowing. But it just shows you that if you do a little research, there probably is, depending on where you live, something nearby. Keeping in mind too that if there isn't, the street's right outside. Right? I learned this game playing on the street. Right. With, like you said, a Milek stick and a Milek ball. That's how I started in the game. A little plastic net that we'd have to replace every 3 years because we'd just destroy it. But the game of deck hockey, ball hockey really is fascinating. And again, for the audience who might not know a lot about this, now the audience who does know about this is putting their hands up right now because they love when we represent the game. But it's a pretty awesome version of the sport. And I love, Bill, when I was researching again, I read some articles about you. There's some great pictures of you with Team USA player and kind of on the bench. And you can't tell that it's ball hockey. It looks like any other international event that you've ever played in. So just staying on deck ball hockey for 1 second, if any of the audience would like to look into that, research that as another option, where should they go? Where's the starting point to get involved in that game?
Absolutely. So you look up usaballhockey.com, I believe is the website, and they do a fantastic job of navigating you in the direction based off of your location. And once you get to the specifics from your area, there's going to be somebody in that area that can help you take that next step. If you're in Pittsburgh area, or, and you're looking to play, for once a week all year round as an adult to keep running around, like, give us a call. We got that for you. If you want your kid to play in the summer to, because he's a high level AAA ice hockey player and you want to give him his competition fix, we have that for you. And same thing in Jersey and Texas, everywhere you are, not too many places where they're going to be a few hours away. For the most part, you're going to be able to get somewhere. It's still growing. It's not ice hockey. It's not, every 10 minutes. However, we're getting to a point now where ball hockey leagues are popping up all over the country as opposed to those 5 spots. So go to USA Ball Hockey, Google it, Google Ball Hockey in your area, and you're going to find some avenues for you to play if you're interested, or your children to play, more importantly.
I'm going to reiterate for the parents listening out there. We just did an episode, was very well listened to, about how expensive ice hockey is. This is a great kind of cost efficient way to play the game. And again, I'm not adding the worth to the cost, right? I'm not saying ice hockey is better because it costs more. You don't need as much equipment. You don't need as much stuff to play this game. Follow what Bill said. Check it out. This is a great way to meet new people, to see a different side of the game. Mike and I, Christy, we're always encouraging, find different sports or different methods of learning this game. Again, we talked about ball hockey and floorball. I mean, there's so much you can learn from this. You talked about the hands, right? But there's other things. Endurance, just running. It's going to build endurance. The speed of the game. That's a big one. You can't always get that on a huge rink. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just going to say too. To Bill mentioned it a couple of times, just in the way he describes the ball hockey. It's exactly how we describe any growth, or bridge sport, right? That if you have kids in your neighborhood, that the likelihood of getting them to throw on ice skates and go to a rink at 8:00 in the morning on a Saturday in December is low. So get them out playing ball hockey, get them understanding that, it is hockey. And then that if you're a hockey enthusiast, if you want to grow the sport, then this is a great entry level way to do that. Get kids hooked. Bill's probably sees it every day with the kids he works with. Once they start playing, I mean, they're playing. And then, adding skates is just, a cherry on top of the experience. So I think you're still in helmets and gloves and shin guards and elbow pads and everything else. And I think, Jen, if you really need to grow your sport, and bottom line is, for most of your communities, Bill mentioned he grew up playing ball hockey on a tennis court. I would venture to say there's probably a tennis court in your town. And nowadays it's probably getting underused. So, get out there and use it, and wait till you get kicked off from the town supervisor, but just get out there, play a little ball hockey, have some fun. And I think, this is a great way to bring your friends into the realm of hockey without, getting them, the full bore $4,000 a year program.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And, one last thing I'll add, we're going to talk to Bill too about it, because he's heavily involved in ice hockey. Right. But one of the things I found, and Mike, this is super true of you too, is that anybody in our game, I should stop saying our game, that's serious about development finds a way to be involved at multiple levels, street, roller, ice, right? Mike Benelli, again, incredibly involved in finding ways to get sticks in hands of kids off the ice. Bill Sullivan literally just said is the GM of Team USA. He's got some clout there, right? I've obviously involved in an organization, a company that tries to get people off the ice. So I'm just saying this because it echoes this thought. Development can happen anywhere. It doesn't just have to be on the ice. You do not have to spend tens of thousands of dollars a year to get great training, right? I'm not saying it's not worth it. I mean, if you have the means and you can do it, and that's what you enjoy, but God bless it, really, right? But most families don't have that, right? And I think this is a great way. And again, Bill, I'm not trying to just make ball hockey like, hey, this is the cheap option. It's a great option, right? It's a good option.
No, it is. It absolutely is. And please don't underestimate what you can take from it. And if you have a good coach in ball hockey, it's just like having a good coach in ice hockey. You have somebody there to help you develop. Like, I remember just a small thing, not to go off on a rant here, but I was coaching a different group of kids that I don't usually coach, and the high level ball hockey kids, 13 to 15-year-olds. Some of them play AAA ball hockey, and we were doing a 2-on-1 drill, and the kids were doing the exact same thing on every 2-on-1. So I stopped the drill and I was like, guys, like, what are your forwards? What are you looking for when you're coming over the blue line here, or in ball hockey, the yellow line? What are you looking at? And they all kind of were just like, well, they kind of mumbled through it. I was like, let me tell you what I'm looking at. I'm looking at if the defenseman is left or right-handed in this situation, So I'm left-handed coming down the right-hand side. If the defenseman's left-handed, guess what? It's a little bit easier for him to defend the pass as opposed to being right-handed where he can get a stick across. Now, we're getting into like specifics about hockey and coaching and things like that. However, I remember explaining that to him and just looking for different things in hockey and learning how to watch hockey a little bit different, which again is something kind of my mantra with the video stuff. But like that happened on a deck hockey rink. And when I walked off the rink, I had a parent come up to me and be like, listen, I've never had somebody talk hockey like that to my son before. So don't, and I'm not trying to pump my own tires, but I'm saying in ball hockey, there are people who know hockey well, and that's
Right.
anywhere you get good coaching, if that makes sense.
Oh, it does. Listen, this podcast is for you. Please pat yourself on the back. You are an honored guest on this show, sir. You can do whatever you. No, listen. Last thing before I move to your ice hockey side and the scouting and parents, we did ask Bill to give us a very point blank, tell us the truth. What's it like to be a scout? What are you looking for? But before we get to that, I want to tell you this. So I had Anthony LaPerriere, so that's the son of Ricky, who owns Milek up in Winchendon,
Yep.
Massachusetts, down to my house. We did a little promo video where we played a ball hockey game in my driveway. And, what I was amazed with Bill was, he played for Team USA at one point of his life, right?
Yes, he did. That's who I was referring to when I said the Leclercs and Carriers and all the guys. Yep.
There you go. So yeah, by the way, anybody who ever wanted to know what Milek stand for, I believe it's Michael Leclerc was his son, Ray Leclerc, and that's why it's Milek. So that's where that came from. Now cat's out of the bag. Everybody knows now. But Anthony came down to my house and could do things with a ball that I didn't know was possible. And I remember he was scoring goals. I'm like, how did you do that? Like, and I started learning. And again, I'm late 30s now, right? I'm like, wow, he was teaching me stuff that I had never even thought of. That goes to show you that even at the highest levels of deck ball hockey, I mean, there's talent. There's immense talent and immense skill that you don't even realize comes into the game. And again, when you're using a ball, the game changes a little bit, right? What you can do with that changes a little bit. Everything from aerodynamics to how it lands on the stick to just kind of how you have to hit it. He taught me how to shoot because shooting's a little bit different. It's not a puck. All right. Mechanics are different.
Motion, absolutely.
Right. So I'm just saying, even I was learning at this point in my life. But before I get this guy, I just want to say any awesome stories, any amazing stories you want to share from your time in ball hockey that just, I'm sure you have a lot, but like, is there one that's just like, man, this was an amazing moment in my life?
Whenever you win, it's kind of special. And I've been lucky enough, and I always tell people this, I'm lucky enough to make, a living in ice hockey combined with ball hockey. And I am involved in high level ice hockey. I'm extremely fortunate for that. But ball hockey allowed me to see the world. Because of, I was lucky enough to be able to handle the ball a little bit and at least make people think I was good, even though everybody else was much better. But the allowing me to see the world and going to different places in Europe and neat places in Canada that I never would have, left areas of Pittsburgh if not for. It's been real fortunate. And specifically, for better or worse, and we're working on it with USA Ball Hockey because there's kind of like a big five in ball hockey. It's US, Canada, Slovak, Czech, and Finland are all very, very good, and anybody can win at any time. And USA Ball Hockey for men, women, and junior, we've only won one gold medal, unfortunately. We've won other medals. We just won bronze this time for the men's. The women have won 2 silvers, I believe, and juniors have won some bronze and stuff. We won a silver at the men's in 2015. I bring that up because the one gold medal was in 2006 in Aosta, Italy, right after the Olympics were in Italy in 2006. Or they were getting ready for it. I can't remember. Something was going on in Milan around then. But also, while we were in Italy in 2006 playing for the World Ball Hockey Championships, the World Cup was going on. And it happens to be the same year that Italy won the World Cup that year. And we were in Italy in a small mountain town called Aosta. And it was unbelievable. It's kind of like when you think Italy, you're in the mountains. It's beautiful. Now, we ended up winning the gold medal that year. It's the only one USA Ball Hockey has won. We beat Slovak in the gold medal game. And still chokes me up thinking about it. But another neat experience there was seeing how the country shut down for the World Cup and just, emerging and being a part of that and experiencing a different culture. And like every time they scored a goal, there was a mini parade that went through the town, and people were just, it was unbelievable to experience that. I wish I had more. I wish my words could give it more value here. But what I'm leading to is you never know where something is going to take you. And ball hockey, because I could stick handle a ball a little bit, took me to Italy to play world championships, allowed me to win a gold medal. And, I don't want to say more importantly, but allowed me to experience something in life that I never would have otherwise. You know what I mean? Right. And that World Cup was pretty neat. It was pretty neat.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic story. I'll tell you what, man, we could use a little of that here right now, right? In America, just something to bring us together, right? It just seems like even the Olympics don't do that anymore. But no, thanks for sharing that story. And look, thank you for representing our country. I really mean that. I say that. It doesn't matter what the sport is, what the event is, and going back to what you said earlier about trying to get in the Olympics, I find when we say that about ball or roller, people kind of roll their eyes. I'm like, look, have you guys ever seen netball? Netball's an Olympic sport. And then the last Olympics, I saw 3-on-3 basketball. So if they can do it, we can do it.
And I promise you it would be popular in the summer, right? Because it would be a summer event and people would want to get their hockey fix. And people who, when they actually do watch the highest level and they understand how fast it is and how physical it is, and, it's not what you're thinking of. And when you go and watch a high level ball hockey game, it's mean and it's fast and it's fun to watch. And the issue we're running into at the international level is I think we need to get it into a few more countries that have a governing body and organization. However, they've been working on it, and I trust the people who are working on it to get it done. So
yeah, look, developing a sport is not an easy task. Getting people to jump into something is not an easy task. Mike knows a little bit about that.
Yeah.
All right, I want to switch over to ice hockey now. So as we said in the open, Bill, you're a scout for the London Knights, very prominent team in junior hockey. It's nothing to shy away from here, right? Can you speak to us and the parents listening for a few minutes about what do you look for and what do the coaches look for when you're scouting players? And I want to reiterate, parents, we've asked them to be brutally honest with us, right? Because at this level, you are talking about literally the highest level of competition. You're towards the top of the pyramid here. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, Billy, just to kind of frame it too, just the age of the kids, really when they come into junior hockey, really when do you start your scouting journey, all that kind of stuff. I mean, a lot of our audiences are mites and squirts and, 10U and 8U parents, but listen, we have a ton of teenagers and 15U and 16U players at every level, right? From the rec level to what we, some of the people we've talked to that have very high level kids that are playing in high level programs. So I think just to kind of understand, where you're coming into the pipeline here of the player, with the Knights.
Sure. So I always preface it with understand that agents and advisors come into play first. Okay. They're going to start watching your children around Bantam Minor, maybe Bantam Major in that time frame. Because when I come into the fold and everybody like me, if anybody's telling you that there are scouts at your game prior to minor midget, please understand that it's probably not very significant. I will go to maybe 20 Bantam Major games to see the upcoming higher end kids. But I've heard people say, well, I really want my son, or my son had, 50 scouts at his Bantam Major game. Respectfully, no, they didn't. And that's okay. And the only people that are there of significance that are watching, maybe us on occasion, just to see that top 1% of the 1% of the 1% to see who's coming up. But that's kind of where agents and advisors start to get their representation set up, because 9 out of 10 players, when they get to me at this point in their minor midget year, their 15-year-old year, a lot of the higher end players will either already have their representation or they're looking for it. And if you don't have representation at this time, please understand that you're in the majority. I'm talking of the top 1%. Not most of the people get their representation a little bit later. So I come into play, and everyone like me will come into play in minor midget, U15, U16, and U18. That's what we're watching. That's what everybody's watching. depending on where you work in juniors and where you work in college hockey or where you work in, major juniors, maybe depends on what you're watching a little more than others. I'd be lying to you if I said for the London Knights, I'm watching a boatload of U18 hockey, but you have to understand what I am looking for as a United States scout for the London Knights. It's a little bit different than a North American League scout or an OJ scout or even a USHL scout for phase 2 and things like that. So when we're all coming into play is midget hockey and a very, very, very little bit of Bantam Major is kind of when we're coming into the fold. Does that make sense on all that, guys?
Yeah. I think the point we need to reiterate here, because you're actually supporting things we've done on the show. We've always said that kind of 15-year-old mark is when you start seeing kind of the seriousness come in. But adversely, and I think it's important to say this, is that, you're not looking at mites, you're not looking at squirts, and you're not looking at peewees. And the reason I want to bring that up, I just had a father ask me the other day at a mite game, like, well, the future, what should I be looking for the future? And I said,
Sure.
look, it's not an unfair question, believe it or not, because his kid has some talent. But I said, look, right now it's just about loving the game. It's about finding the fundamental skill sets of the game. And if your kid is that good, you will know. All right. But right now it's about love of the game. But I just wanted to reiterate that. So 15 on Bantam and midget, that's when this process even begins. And as you said, the top 1% of the top 1% of the top 1%.
Right. Yeah, and that's and puberty's in there somewhere.
Yeah.
So so it's so that definitely makes an impact on a player's career.
Not to interrupt, that's what I wanted to say is people say, well, this guy's the best Bantam minor player I've ever seen. And I've seen some unbelievable Bantam minor players, but please understand that look, what is your body when you're 12 and 13 years old? Like, right. I don't care if he has the most skill in the world. What if, God forbid, that kid ends up staying 5'4" and 130 pounds? It happens every year. And that's completely okay. I'm not saying small players, can't make it. Obviously, there's a level, but please understand what I'm saying is that puberty comes into it in a big way. And some kids don't hit puberty until they're 17 and 18. Some kids hit it at their 13 and 14. But I'm bringing up the not watching the younger as much because, quite frankly, we need to see you do it as you get older. Like, I'll be aware of you if you are the best Bantam Major player in the country, if you're one of the top 10 players, and I'm going to watch Bantam Major Nationals. However, it's about once you get a little bit older. At the younger ages, it's about development. Like I always say, you have two showcase years for the high-end player. You have your OHL and USHL and NTDP kind of draft year, right? Not that you get drafted for the NTDP, but you have that year. And then your other showcase year is your NHL draft year. So that year, it's very important what you put on tape or what you do on the rink. Every other year, including those 2 years, by the way, I call development years. It is about getting better. It's about loving the game. It's about improving what your just overall feel on the rink and off the rink and understanding if this is what you want to do. You guys kind of get what I'm saying leading up to midget?
Totally. 100%.
Yeah. I mean, I was actually at a dinner a couple of months ago with probably, I think there was 4 USHL scouts in the room. And it was weird. We overheard a family talking, and we saw the mom and dad walk in. And when you see these two individuals, like you could see every scout in the room salivating because they're looking at going, look at the size of these two human beings. And then all of a sudden he's like, oh, my kid plays hockey. Oh yeah. Where does he play? How old is he? So I think a lot of that, there's so much that goes into the thought process of, talent obviously is number one and where the kid is and skill level wise. But, a lot of genetics have to come into play. A lot of it is, just where are they at in their journey, physically. So, why, and like somebody like you, and you brought up a lot of PTSD for me coaching at when I was up at Plymouth State, doing my recruiting, for Division III athletes and driving all over the country. And, you think about the time and everybody's like, oh, you must love going all these different places and rinks. I'm like, listen, I'm trying to figure out how I'm taking yesterday's meal money and converting it to mileage money today so I can go see this player up in, Maine play hockey. But at the end of the day, we don't have the time, right? You don't have the time as a scout and a recruiter to worry about the 9 and 10 and 11-year-olds because you have to take your time and consolidate it and then look at the best players in your wheelhouse, and then really, really dive into those players.
It's such a small window that, I actually have access to these players and am actually recruiting them. And not to go back to your original question, Lee, you kind of asked like what we're looking for, right?
Right.
That's kind of what I want to touch on. Please understand that for better or worse, you need to be able to skate now. And listen, there's levels of skating. There's kids who can't skate as well as McDavid. Well, nobody can skate as well as McDavid, but there's kids who can't skate as well as higher end players, but still are able to accomplish things on the rink, right? But there is a level. You need to be able to get around the rink. You need to be able to move. IQ, people say that is something that, well, kids just have it. You either have it or you don't. Respectfully, I think that's a crock. I think you absolutely can develop your hockey IQ. And is there maybe a cutoff at some point that meshes with your IQ and your natural athletic and hockey ability? 100%, 100%. But I can teach somebody to improve their mind. You can teach somebody to improve their mind, but you need to know kind of how to do it. And that's kind of why I started Sullivan Hockey, and we'll get into that later. But the IQ part of the game, you absolutely can improve. And we look for that. And how do we look for that? Well, what is he doing away from the puck? I always teach my little guys, who's the most important person on the rink? And everybody will yell, the goalie, the center. I'm like, no, the person without the rink's the most important person the person without the puck is the most important person on the rink for me. So watching what somebody does, how he's reading the play. Also, does he read the play too much? Does he take himself out of the play because he's always either a step ahead or he's sometimes you just have to act and go too. So your IQ becomes very important, and your skill goes without saying, and your production. And this is something that coaches don't like when I say to parents and players, but please understand that as forwards, you have to produce a little bit, okay? You can't just be the best locker room guy and be the guy who brings cupcakes to the games. If you want to play, Division III NCAA hockey, you want to play club hockey one day, you want to play junior levels at any level, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, you want to play major, junior, you want to play professional hockey. As a forward, even if you're a third or fourth liner at our level, you were probably producing a good bit at the level before. You do have to find a way to produce. It's important. And I've heard so many people that I've heard talking say like, well, points aren't all that matters. And they're not at all. They are not all that matters. But to say they don't matter at all is ignorant, and don't do that, because it does. You have to find a way to help your team win offensively. Defensively, it's a little more open. There's ranges, there's two-way defensemen, there's offensive defensemen, there's defensive defensemen. But quite frankly, from my level, if you're going to be a defensive defenseman, the size comes into it. Same thing with everything, guys. Size comes into play as well. So listen, I can rant all day about kind of what we look for, and it ranges. But if you guys have any specific questions on it, that might make it a little easier,
I think my question is this, because everything you're saying is totally fair, right? When you're getting to the junior ranks, the college ranks, the pro ranks, you start to get into the business side of things a little bit, right? You have to have that talent. It's just, there's no ways about it. What I want to do is this. Like I'm thinking about the Might Squirt Pee-wee coach parents right now, right? They hear this, they go, okay, I got to work on my kid's production, right? So, and again, yeah, I'm going to totally let you do this. Like, what is your message to them? Because that's really not what you're saying. You know what I mean? Right.
No. And that's why it's always, I kind of have to walk a tightrope when I'm speaking about this. It's a little bit different saying, I don't care if your son in Squirt and Pee-wee had Gretzky numbers, or if he's just learning how to touch the puck. Like, I didn't start ice hockey until my last year of Pee-wee as well. I always played ball hockey, so I get that kids are at different levels coming up. But please understand that I'm not saying you have to get 10,000 points. I'm just saying you can't have 5 points in a 50-game season in your midget level and get mad that the London Knights didn't draft you, So what you need to work on is the understanding of the game. If your player is a forward, or if your player is an offensive defenseman, and we're speaking purely out of creating offense right now, we have to learn how to do it. And if your player isn't McDavid, or your player isn't Crosby, which is pretty much everybody on the planet, and we have to learn different ways of how you're going to be most effective on the rink. Are you going to be a power forward like Josh Anderson and past guys when you're older and be able to blow them up and go with speed and get 30 points out of purely hard work and understanding the offensive zone? Or are you a Gabriel Landeskog who's going to get 60 points every season without you even really understanding how, because he doesn't overly speak out. He just does it. So when you're younger, please understand when I say you need to create offense a little bit when you're older, and you do. But when the younger, it's all about development, guys. Have him learn how to get around the rink, or her learn how to get around the rink, and what to do without the puck. But please understand that when it comes to evaluating for the USHL, the OHL, the North American League, this is what we do for a living. And I have to bring players in that are going to help the team and help the business. And I just don't want you to have a mindset of, oh, well, my whole life they've been telling us that, points don't matter. Well, just be aware, it's about developing up to a certain point, right?
Yeah,
Totally.
so Bill, knowing that too, so and based off of where your expertise have to fall in, and being in a place where you're finding players for a specific organization, maybe you could talk a little bit about, it's easy to see the best player on the ice. Everybody's recruiting the same kid. Everybody sees this kid and they're like, okay, well, yeah, obviously that kid's a Division I athlete. That kid's a pro. He's a player that's going to go places. What are some of the things that you look for? And when you're looking at a 15U, 16U, 17U player, and you're looking at a midget minor, midget major player, are you looking at the player, like in your eye, are you looking at the player of what they're producing right now with that team? Or are you looking, okay, what can the Knights do to make this player a great player so that we found somebody that nobody else saw? Like, what are those little intangibles that you're looking for in a player that maybe the other 7 scouts in the, not to give away any, not to give away any shop secrets, but, just because I think a lot of kids get discouraged that they're not the best player on the ice, but yet the job of a junior program, and not only to win, but it is to develop players so that it's easy to find the best players. What are you doing to find the players that you can develop into the best players in your system?
No, that's a really good question. And I like to answer this question with a simple one special thing. Have one special thing that attracts me to you and say, okay, he does that extremely well. He does that better than most. He does that, and it makes me feel like there's hope. You have that one special thing, and we can work around that. For instance, are you a kid who every time you're on the rink in the defensive zone, you're a puck magnet and you block every shot? Because that's attractive. I want a kid. You need those kids to win a Memorial Cup. You need those kids to win an NCAA championship. Does this kid know how to block shots? What about faceoffs? Do you win every single faceoff on the rink at the midget level when you're in the national championship? Because I really like that. What about a kid who has poise beyond his years at the back end, and he's just possessing the puck, and he doesn't have a care in the world. I like to refer to those players as they're playing in a rocking chair, right? He's just playing hockey, and he happens to be fantastic at it. Maybe he's only 5'4" right now. Maybe he's on the second pairing on his midget team because the 2 6'3" studs who are going, committed to so-and-so are playing above him. But look at this kid controlling the rink. What about a forward who has all the skill in the world, but he's still bite-sized? Or a forward who can really release a puck, but he doesn't understand how to give his shots deception or where to release it and things like that. Having one special thing is something that we can go from there, guys. That's something that that's what interests me, at least. I can't speak to everybody, but we all know who the top 50 players are in the country. But after that, what gives me a feeling on a kid? What gives me something that we can do something with that? I'm lucky enough to work for an organization who I think has the best coaching, at the junior level in the world, college, junior level. I trust Dale and Mark Hunter more than I trust anybody, along with Dylan Hunter and Rick Stedman and Rob Simpson. I trust them to get out of a player what what they potentially have. And when we're evaluating, and this is something that, for better or worse, I don't, maybe other scouts will tell you differently, but at the end of the day, it's my gut. I trust what I see. I trust what I think a kid could be brought out of him or pulled out of him. I'm not right 100% of the time. No scout is, especially when we're talking about kids who aren't, those top 20 kids in the country. So I'm going to go with my gut every time. And I've heard people say, this kid's no good, this kid's fantastic. And I've disagreed with my bosses before, and I will again. But at the end of the day, I trust my gut. And that is what I go for to answer your question there, sir. Like, I think I just need to feel like he has something, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, so my that's unbelievable. So you're right, and I think just on a follow up, then and really you're in such a unique position because you're a GM of one sport, for lack of and then a scout for another, working for another GM. What do you find yourself looking for players that will match what that GM wants, and do you find that your coaches are trying to influence you to match players that you find for the coach?
Yes and no. So you got to keep in mind, like if I work for an NHL team and I'm scouting, and I'm an amateur scout for the National Hockey League draft, you have to understand that most of the time in hockey, maybe if you're in that top 5 pick, maybe you're drafting for position, but most of the time in hockey, you are drafting for best available, right? So you're drafting, you're going through, you're making a list. You don't make a list based on position. Maybe you do, but eventually you have to merge those lists together: forward, defenseman, goalies. You have to put them all together. So at the junior level, you have to understand what my job is working as the American scout for the London Knights is going to be a little bit different than what the Windsor scout for Canada, for the Ontario area is, or the London area, or a USHL scout for their particular teams. Because London, if we're going to bring an American up and we're going to have the, potentially pay for his schooling if need be, and all the money and finances that go into housing a player at the major junior level. And if we're bringing an American player up, that player needs to be an impact player, right? So they've told me, and we've sat down, they're like, Billy, like, we like skill. We need skill if we're going to be bringing the Americans up. And we like toughness. We need toughness if we're going to be bringing the Americans up, because it's a long process to get American players to the major junior level, guys, because even though most casual people know that what major junior does and half the NHL is from it and everything, we're still in a college-based culture in the United States. Like, everybody wants to go to the blue chip universities, and I get it. So the recruiting part is a very big aspect of what I do, as opposed to just scouting. In fact, it's, primarily recruiting. But the kind of long-winded way of answering your question is, the majority of the time you have to go with, you put it in terms of best available. But at the end of the day, I know now, after working with London for so long, what particular players I'm supposed to be bringing up there. And I'm sure everybody who works on their specific teams have something of similar kind of rules, Yeah,
this is fantastic insight, Bill. I really appreciate you opening up to it, because again, I think this is a side of the game that a lot of youth parents, coaches, we don't see it, right? We don't see kind of how that process works. So you're giving some great insight. Let me ask you this question too. In addition to talent, which has to be there, I want to keep reiterating that, both on your behalf and behalf of the topic. In addition to talent, how much does the person play into it? Who they are, what they do off the ice, attitude, good or bad, right? How much does that play into kind of what you guys look for?
It's gigantic, guys. I can't speak to it enough. And it is amazing how, like we mentioned, the 1%, the 1%, the 1%. Every year, I will talk to one of the higher end players, and I get surprised every time. But they just happen to be good at this game, guys. It's not their passion. It's not their love. They're like, they like hanging out with their friends. They like doing all the kids stuff. And that's great, because all the kids do. However, every year, one of the or multiple of the best players in the country they just are very good at this game naturally. Okay. So that you can basically count on two hands how many of those players are in the NHL based off of pure just skill and ability, as opposed to will and want and personality. So if there's ever a tiebreaker, if we're debating between two players or anything, guys, you know that we're going with the better person. We're going with the kid who I slam the table and say, this kid, for excuse my language, will work his ass off for us. This kid wants to do it. This kid will do unforgivable things to make sure this team succeeds. Also, this kid gets along with his teammates. He's a very mature kid. He interacts with adults very well. That don't underestimate that. The kids who aren't comfortable speaking to adults yet, and that comes at times, but kids who don't make eye contact and look down and just aren't comfortable speaking to adults usually aren't comfortable receiving from adults too, if that makes sense. So like, this kid won't talk to me one-on-one and I'm explaining a situation to him, how is he going to react when Dale Hunter's explaining something to him on the bench? So understanding how to speak to adults is big. How you treat your parents. I know Dale or Rob Simpson, who's our associate GM, likes to tell a story. He was interviewing a kid on a Zoom call, and the mom didn't know he was on the Zoom call and asked him a polite question or something, and he snapped on her. In front of our brass, and that was basically the end of that conversation. This was a high-end player too. How you treat your parents, be nice to them. They're doing everything in the world for you. Sure, every once in a while we all get mad at them, but I'm just telling you,
they get mad at us too.
Yeah, exactly. So listen, guys, the how you are as a person is just, it's right up there with your ability. It really is. It really is.
So here's the connection point for me, and I'm kind of presenting this to both of you guys, right? I'm going to say this again. Talent is unquestionably must be there if you want to play at the next level. It is not possible to do without. But you have these opportunities. The skill sets that Bill is talking about right now, in terms of the type of person you are, can be built from might up. You don't have to wait till your kid's 15 to teach them some responsibility and etiquette around other people. So a big part of what I like to see at the younger ages, in addition to just great hockey development, is great personal development. You don't have to wait till 15 to teach an 8-year-old what responsibility is, what accountability is, what trust is, what treating your parents with respect is. I can't say how many times last season, just helping out my team, I have no problem telling another kid, do not talk to your mother that way. Right. And I want parents to tell my kid that if they're being disrespectful to anyone. Right. Again, that's the discipline side. Go ahead, Mike. Yeah.
No, I'm just saying, in fact, that's more important than hockey sense and all. Like to Bill's point, like, give me a kid that is a sponge. Give me a kid that can look at me in the eye. Give me a kid that can communicate.
Right.
Give me a kid that can take criticism, take advice, take the opportunity for me to want to teach them. And I can do that much easier with a kid in the body that they're going to be playing in than worrying about what they did at 7 and 8. And to me, that's where you see the real slippery slope, right? Because if you can't be respectful to your parents, or like in our case, in our area, respectful to your nanny, respectful to your grandparents who's bringing you to the rink because the two parents are working, or your teammates. If you can't be a good teammate in the locker room, listen, coached a long time. I've had some really some kids that were tough kids, like just their personalities. I'm like, oh, the kid's just so good. Like I'll let his I'll give him a little bit more leeway. But at the end of the day, he can't destroy my room. And and I think that's where it's really important at 6, 7, 8, 9 years old that to build that, like in anything else, build the foundation so that when they get to guys like Bill, like he can polish them up.
And guys, it has and it will destroy more kids in the future. I promise you, kids who are some of the best players in the world at this game, for excuse me, lack of a better term, kind of pricks, kind of like a little bit, little bit edgy, of not the best. It has destroyed careers. It will destroy more careers. And a lot of the time it's just, you know, giving them that structure at the beginning. Don't let it get to a point where when they're 15, like everybody gets a little mad at a teammate every once in a while if he passes over a 2-on-1 and it slides between a skate and a stick, and maybe you throw your hands into the air. I'll give everybody a pass on that on occasion, right? Everybody
Sure.
will, especially if
Yeah.
you're a high-end kid. However, man, if that's a constant, and guys, don't think for a second when we're evaluating, we're not looking at you on the bench. We're not standing next to you in the stands when you're watching a different game and seeing how you interact with your friends and how you interact with your coach and your parents. Everybody's nice to us, right? We're your future. Everybody's super nice to me. I want to see how you interact with your teammates and everything at this age. And I think you guys hit the nail on the head that parents, like, nip this in the bud early, give him good structure, give her good structure, give them a chance to be hockey players if they want to, because if they're terrible people, guys, or even just, grumpy people or irritable people or so many different things, give your good people, you want to succeed, guys. We want to help you succeed. At the business stage, if you're just awful, like, I'm going around you. I'm going to go to the next person. I promise.
I'll tell you this right now, Bill, you're doing our audience a favor. We're going to make sure we cut that into a micro clip, and parents, share that one with your kids. Bill's throwing us all a bone right now. Share that clip with your kids, right? You got to take care of the people that take care of you. And, Bill, a good friend of our show, JB Spizzo, who's worked around the NHL, just to show everybody, reiterate your point of how high this goes all the way to the league. He would say that when an incoming player was traded to the team he was working with, these are NHL players.
Yes.
First call he'd make is the equipment manager for the other team. And say, how does that player treat you? How does that player treat everybody in the locker room? And he would base almost everything, at least mentally, on what that trainer would say. Right. So this is a commonality across all levels. So again, just kind of in the spirit of the show, right? At the youth levels, find the team where your kid's going to develop the best. It doesn't always have to be a AAA All-Star Elite Selects team,
Sure.
right? Sometimes it's a B team where your kid can flourish and learn. All right. You have those types of seasons. B, as Bill said, who they are, how they treat other people is immensely important. It's a differentiator. It's a differentiator if you have the talent, which is also needed. All right. I think my third point from this episode is ball hockey kicks ass, and you should check it out. All right. And that Bill is a proponent of that. He is a steward of that. He is leading that generation. Bill, you probably affected lots and lots of lives in a positive way. But again, this was an awesome episode, man. You brought a lot of insight here at a level I don't think we've had before. And Mike, I don't know if you had any final thoughts or questions too. I don't like to just end it without talking to you.
No. I just think with Bill's background and kind of where he is in all different aspects of the sport of ice hockey, whether it's off the, what he does with, building hockey IQ in players and not giving up on an individual, coming up through the system, knowing that he has a perspective from the pro guys down to, somebody that's just getting out there with a stick and a ball, and obviously growing up in an environment where you're introducing hockey to a lot of first timers and beginners and the structure of the business and things like that. I think it's awesome. But I think just knowing that you can leave, hopefully the podcast here, if you listen to it, with not worrying about all those other, things that get in the way, but just worry about, just creating, great environments for your kids so that when guys like Bill roll around the rink unannounced, that they, they're presenting themselves well, what my grandmother, you always like, make sure you leave the house with clean underwear just in case you get into an accident, right? It's the same thing with, I think just the being in the rink, good recruiters and good scouts aren't going to call you up and say, hey, listen, I'm going to be at your game tomorrow night, and you really got to be on your best behavior because I want to see you in the light that I think you should be in. They're just gonna pop in, and hopefully nobody's gonna know they're there, and hopefully they're gonna show you that their character is high even when nobody's watching.
Bill, you've been a fantastic guest. I can't thank you enough for being here.
No, guys, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I think what you're doing is awesome, and I think the more information that the parents can get at a young age is gonna just benefit their kids in the future. And if I can kind of just leave with a couple thoughts, what we just finished with, my dad had a saying, and I kind of have it as a poster, in my apartment here, and it's it just says, remember, it doesn't cost you a cent to be nice to people. You can just do that for free. It's very, very easy to be nice to people. So do that, because not just in life, but in not just in hockey, but in life, I promise that's going to lead to good things. And my one other thought on a less, general kind of phrase is, I know we mentioned a little bit of kind of, how to develop in different things, and watch hockey as your kids start to get to be 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years old. Watch hockey, not just the NHL, watch junior hockey, watch the level that they want to get to, and watch players that are of comparable, not ability, but comparable positions, and guys who maybe look alike to your game, and watch them and see what they do. I am gigantic. It's literally what I'm making my living on now. I'm very, very big on learning for kids how to watch hockey and how they can improve from hockey. And I know we didn't have time to touch on that much today, but I want to just jam it into parents. Watch the game. I promise you that is almost as important as going to your skills session every day. Does that make sense, guys?
It does.
Yeah.
In fact, I just wrote down a note that we're going to have you on for a part 2 titled "How to Watch the Game" to learn, because I think you're absolutely right. I think there's a lot to learn there. And Bill, I'll tell you again, this was a fantastic episode. I took a lot of notes and a lot of insight out of this, which is exactly what we look for. And yeah, I'm going to thank you again. I think those were great points at the end. And again, just reiterating the point, the type of person you are is immensely important. We can't forget those skill sets when we're developing our children in any game. This goes well beyond hockey. So Bill Sullivan, our guest today, fantastic. And if you enjoyed this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey, do me a favor, share it in your team snap. Tell your teammates about it. Tell the other parents about it. Give us a 5-star review. I'm promoting us because I want to. I'm not going to lie to you, audience. We're hitting top 50 numbers here in the hockey podcast category. It's mainly because of you. And we can't tell you how much we appreciate your willingness to send us emails and to listen each week and let us know that we're providing you value. That's why we started the show, and we take that responsibility seriously. That's why we're bringing people on like Bill Sullivan to be here today to teach us. And Bill, I'm serious. We'll have to have you back for that. I think that's a great episode title, is kind of how to watch hockey.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
So that's going to do it for this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Remember, you can listen to all of the episodes on ourkidsplayhockey.com or wherever you listen to podcasts. Reviews are appreciated. Join our Facebook community, Our Kids Play Hockey. Pretty much just search Our Kids Play Hockey. You'll find us. We appreciate all of you. Hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week, and we'll see you next time on Our Kids Play Hockey. Have a great day, everyone. We hope you enjoyed this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Make sure to like and subscribe right now if you found value wherever you're listening, whether it's a podcast network, a social media network, or our website, ourkidsplayhockey.com. Also, make sure to check out our children's book, When Hockey Stops, at whenhockeystops.com. It's a book that helps children deal with adversity in the game and in life. We're very proud of it. But thanks so much for listening to this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey, and we'll see you on the next episode.